let's do a quick deck tech on this version of Burn. I don't know if this is the ideal version of Burn that I would build in terms of how I would look at the list, but it is one of the ones that did well recently. And there is a lot of things I like about it. None of the 2-drop shenanigan nonsense with Rolling Vortex or Eidolon the Great Rebel anymore. The mana bait or the main deck is about as streamlined as you can get. The one thing I would probably consider maybe adding to these lists, some number of Lightning Helixes, perhaps, if you expect a lot of Prowess and energy in your meta. But I do like the setup of 4 Searing Blaze, 4 Skullcrack in the main, and then some number of Searing Blood in the sideboard for the Prowess and energy matchups. Rest of the list, pretty standard thoroughfare for Burn. 20 lands, 1 Barbarian Ring, 3 Sunbed Canyons, bunch of fetch lands, 3 mountains, 2 Sacred Foundries. You could probably get away with 2 mountains, 2 Sacred Foundries right now, and maybe work in an Elegant Parlor, although I do think in general Elegant Parlor is a little bit... It's great to fetch, but terrible in your opening hand. So be aware of that. And then not really much to say about the main deck anymore. It is pretty stock for Burn. Sideboard, 3 Magebane Lizard, pulls a lot of duty against Storm, Prowess, possibly even against Belcher. So a pretty reasonable card there. Roiling Vortex. I don't really know there's a ton of matchups you really want that. Like, conceivably, you could want it against Energy. But I do think it's a little slow in that matchup. 2 copies of Molten Rain. Theoretically for Eldrazi. I'm not a huge fan of this card. On the play, it can be fast enough. On the draw, 3 mana is too fair in Modern right now. I almost honestly think Blood Moon would be better in that regards, but you know, it is a damage-based card that does help in some matchups theoretically. Exquisite Firecraft, mainly here for any type of blue nonsense, so Belcher and Murktide. 3 copies of Searing Blood, obviously here for, you know, Prowess and Energy mainly. Any other small creature decks you might run into, like the Mirror. Then 3 copies of Smash to Smithereens. Corey Steelcutter is a card. Affinity is still a deck. And you can obviously bring this in against things like Eldrazi, you know, when they have Trinispheres and Talismans. So, that's it. Let's get into some Burn matches and see how Burn feels positioned in the meta currently. Alright, trying for some Boros Burn. 1 lander with 6 spells does seem tempting, but I think we'll... Alright, into a 6 land hand, 6 card hand. Swift Spear. Okay, we are in a 20 land build, so looks like we're not sure what we're up against here yet. Maybe one of the Hollow One builds. Nope. Looks like some type of Prowess build. Okay. Okay. Pass. Obviously not attacking my 2/2 into a 3/3. Okay. Bluff Canal. Sure. Guess we'll hold up bolt here. Really do need to draw a land at some point. Sure. Not intending on just chum blocking with Goblin Guide here. Morphos. Kind of digging deep here. So I'll put them to 8 or 7. Still need to top deck a land to kill them. Sure. Okay, if they have one other. If they have a bolt or anything, we're just dead. I say stop slow rolling, would you? Alright. So Certain Blood's not the best against them, but it's okay, I guess. Magebane Lizard does a lot of damage. Probably bring in Smash against Skullcracks can go out. Okay. This isn't the best version against Prowess, but it'll do. Okay. Lizard, go. Ragavan. Okay. Sure. Interesting that you would play Ragavan in a, is it Prowess list? Does make Searing Blood a little bit better against them. Uh-huh. To 3. Yep. Okay, Metamorphose. Dash Monkey. That's for 4. Arid Mesa, sure. Alright. Opponent is dead. Is it possible they don't have Corey Steele in their deck? Maybe. Shade one of the smashes for a skewer just in case. The rest of the cards don't make a ton of sense. So we'll roll with what we got. Is hand good enough on the draw? Certainly questionable, but we'll try it. Mainly because we don't have any early interaction, really. Sure. Guess that makes the skewer a little bit better. Interesting. Lizard, go. Uh-huh. Sure. 1, deal them 3. Sure. Okay. Okay. And nice to pick up the win against Prowess. Alright. Match numero dos. This hand is pretty decent. One thing with the sequencing on this hand is probably want to lead on Sunbake hands, so you have a much easier time triggering Searing Blaze, but that is like the only sequencing possibility that's really a problem. Okay, prismatic endings, so Goblin God is dead. Probably blue-white control, or maybe Keranos control. Or I guess it could technically be Jeskai Prowess. Sure. So, note I am playing these matches, I think 5 days apart. I played the initial match on a Sunday afternoon. Now I'm playing the second match on a Friday, and then we get paired automatically against Jeskai. So, lead on the information they know. Sure. Say worst case scenario here would be Corey Steelcutter into doesn't seem like they have a bolt. Put them to 1 here. And my opponent concedes. Does the presence of prismatic ending change my desire to bring in Mage Bait Lizard? Skullcrack's kind of a mid card in this matchup. Firecraft doesn't do much. Molten Rain. So I guess I cut Boros Charm. Number 1, this insulates us in case they have some Blood Moon plan or something. Number 2, Boros Charm, while it is, you know, the purest damage card, really doesn't interact with other creatures, whereas Searing Blood, Smash to Smithereens deals with the creatures, arguably. 5 lands. This is certainly a hand you can't keep under basically any circumstances. Mulligan. Mulligan again. This hand isn't super exciting, but so they are in fact Jeskai, which does make them a good bit weaker against Burn, because they're, well, mainly because their mana is dealing them extra damage, so. Second Preordain. See if they fetch basic mountain here. Nope, fetch shock. Bolt the Goblin God. Nope, prismatic ending it. So I'm going to do a bit of weird sequencing here. I'm going to go Swift Spear, hit you, do this just to use our mana. We know they have a bolt in hand, so we know this Swizzle Spear isn't living. So they're going to 7 at least here. So I can only assume this is bolting the Swift Spear. Okay. Put you to 1. Can we survive through a turn and draw a burn spell to kill you? Okay. So 2, 3, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 is the max damage that can deal here. Now they can't cast any spells. They can deal us a decent amount of damage. Myself 1 damage, deal you a damage. Alright, as my computer just continues to sound like it's trying to win a drag race. Yeah, that's pretty good. Obviously, most burn hands with 2 or 3 lands and a mix of spells are usually pretty good, so obviously you lead on Goblin Guide in most of these situations, and you have a choice of interacting with your opponent's board or just interacting with your opponent's face. Root Walla combo, good to know. No, sorry, not Root Walla, Hollow one. Let me guess. Turn 1. Yep, go nonsense. How many hollow ones did you draw? So because I have the Sunbaked Canyon, I am going to go ahead and fetch Basic Mountain here. Obviously, Searing Blaze can be an important card in some spots, but play out the Swift Spear first. Lava Spike your opponent's face. Okay. Do you have a second land? So they're going to detect this Phoenix. I always thought that I had to attack for some reason, but apparently does not. Let's go ahead and hit him with a Skull Crack to the face. You got burn on your face, you big disgrace. Playing red decks without bolts all over the place. So, Searing Blood isn't at least an interesting option. You could conceivably bring in Smash. They play some amount of non-creature spells, but really they are a creature deck at heart. Molten Rain, not really the matchup for it. Not really a Firecraft matchup. So these are the 6 you could consider. Skullcrack's wee bit of a joke. Tiny wee bit of a joke, eh? Don't really play a great control game against them because they do obviously have Hollow One. They probably also have I think we'll trim on 2 smashes, or well, go with 1 smash and 1 that. I don't want to get too tangled up with these because they're only good against specifically Hollow One. They're unlikely to have any other artifacts in their deck. I mean, there is a distant possibility if a burn player hurt their soul 10 years ago on a Blood Moon that they, pack Dragon Claws in their sideboard, but seems very unlikely these days as Burn's not dead, but Burn's not a tier deck. I mean, Jeskai or Jeskai or Boros Prowess, or not Boros, Jeskai or is it Prowess? Dragon Claw is good bit less effective against because their creatures are such a important part of the mix. Your opening hand's obviously kind of a crapshoot with Burning Inquiry in their deck, but as opening hands go, this goes, Bolt Wave into Searing Blaze, their first creature or two. We could mulligan towards 1-drop creatures, but especially on the draw, they're a lot less likely to get through with, Blazing Root Wall, Flaming, the various 1-drops they have, plus Hollow One, plus, Alright, sorry about the interruption in recording. Looks like I ran out of juice and yield, or space in the old hard drive, so I had to empty the recycling bin. Give me a land. Suppose that's not terribly bad. Basically, we're dead to a stiff breeze here, but wonder why they brought in D-Rev. Yep, probably dead here. They literally have to find a spell that they can cast. Or play a land, flashback, Faithless. No, actually, I take it back. They have to play 2. Yeah, they have made Banjo Lizard of their own. Alright, moving on. They have very interesting sideboarding. Not going to tell them that D-Rev shouldn't be in their deck under any circumstances against Burn, but I guess they're expecting possibly Rest in Peace or some type of Graveyard Hate, which would make some amount of sense. Though, to be fair, if you really understand Burn at all, they're probably going to be playing Sanctifier in deck. If they're, trying to compete against Hollow One and Specificity. But, or even against the Prowess decks, it's an okay card. So I hope we have a good opener here. Hand has 1 more land than I ideally like, but 3 lands. So we ideally get to go like Goblin Guide into Searing Blaze on whatever their turn 1 play is. But you did get to see what their deck is capable of that last game. Yeah, well, at least the parts of it that were recorded, they had one of their more optimal openings. So Goblin Lore can be a scary one, depending on if they have a Marauder or a Flameblade Adept on one. They could potentially have like a Blazing Root Walla and Vengevin. Two to Texas Phoenixes. Ring of Glory is a bit of a scary card. Another hand is Arena of Glory and Goblin Lore at minimum. See, as much as people troll this deck for being RNGesus deck, it does take some amount of sequencing skill with it. So it looks like they are okay. Mage Band Lizard, sure. Gonna go to attacks. Deals us 2 overall, deal them 3, get rid of their creature. Not likely has to go to 6 here. So any burn spell should probably kill them. Don't think there's an Elegant Parlor in this list, so there is not. We're going to fetch Basic Mountain in our upkeep just to thin the deck a little bit. Goblin Lore and Vengevine. Okay. So I think ideally they'd like to go like Marauder or Flameblade Adept and Hollow One. Or they can do that and threaten to end the game next turn, I suppose. Okay, upkeep. Fetch Basic Mountain. Bolt our opponent and call it a game.